G'day, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Mindful Men podcast. My name is Simon Rennie, and I'm the man behind Mindful Men. I'm super excited today. I've got Jamie Usher from Victoria with me on the line from the Mind Tradie. How you going, Jamie?
I'm doing well, Simon. Thanks for having me on. It's a real honor. Thank you.
No problems at all. We've been following each other on Insta for a while, over a year, I reckon now.
Yeah.
And it's good to see your growth, and I've been trying to keep up with you as well. You're taking the Insta world by storm, so I'm really happy that you're online.
Mate, it's been really good because I think we probably started at a pretty similar time. I think we started getting into wanting to post our thoughts and feelings on certain things at a pretty similar time. So it's really good. It's
Yeah.
we've had like a very similar journey, actually.
Yeah, and that's what I've enjoyed so much, is seeing you grow and seeing the guests that you've had on your show and the content that you're providing as well. And sometimes we kind of put the same stuff out at the same time, so it's like we're two like-minded individuals, which is great to connect with you. So so the Mindful Men podcast is a show all about opening up conversations to help boys and men to talk about different things. It could be mental health, it could be study, it could be work, it could be relationship issues, mindset, anything and everything pretty much. So I'm really excited to hear your story today, and I'll open up to you to start off and tell us a bit about who you are and what makes you Jamie Usher.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So I guess once again, thanks for having me on, Simon. It's really good. I almost feel like we actually know each other. Like,
Yeah.
we started the Zoom and we're like into a chat straight away. There's no nerves or anything like that. It's great. I guess that's what social media can do in a more positive way. So more about me. So like currently I'm about to finish my honors year in psychology, and then hopefully to go into the next level now, which is your masters. And then once I finish the masters, I can hopefully be a fully fledged psychologist. So that's one of the journeys I'm on.
Yeah.
One of the paths I'm on now. And I currently work full time as a school counsellor, and obviously, I'm a parent as well. I've got a 7-year-old girl, but I guess that's what I'm currently doing. But I love to put stuff out on my own podcast, I guess, and Instagram, like just to create awareness that if we want to have more, not just more things around us, but more out of ourselves, and connect to ourselves more I guess more of an open way, more of a positive way. There's always ways to do it. Like there's always a way. There's like, depending on your situation, the situation is individual to you, which will mean the answers to your I guess issues or problems in so many words are individual to you, but there's always a way, and it totally depends on the mindset that we undertake. And I guess I just try to I do like, and I try to put out, I guess, information that might be from my story, or just things that I've learned through research or through my study or whatever it is that can hopefully help people. So that's where I'm at the moment.
And that certainly shines through on your podcast and the Mind Tradie Instagram as well, is that positive mindset. But taking it back, so where'd you grow up? You grew up in Melbourne, did you, or Victoria?
Yeah. I was in Melbourne, in a nice place called Frankston, which is in many parts of Australia is well known for various reasons.
Yeah. And tell us a bit about growing up. So you went to school. How'd you go at school?
Okay, so I guess starting in primary school. My mum had I guess I'll take it back a little bit. Just so my mum and dad divorced just before I was born.
Yeah.
And then my mum remarried, I think when I was about 2, and I guess remarried a guy that wasn't that great in many ways, because he had a violent streak to him, and a violent streak that involved violence towards women, and I guess violence towards kids, particularly kids that weren't his own. So I guess growing up in that household while I was in primary school, it meant that I was on edge all the time. I guess I probably would have been almost, diagnosed with something if no one knew no one knew the backstory, which is probably what was happening. They probably just thought I was a hyper kid, because
Yeah.
the real story of what was happening didn't really get shared. Um, I guess like school itself was actually okay. I liked school. I liked hanging around with people and mucking around and that kind of stuff. At primary school, that was okay. It was, it's kind of stuff that was happening home made it a bit tougher. At the age of about nine or 10 is when my mum divorced this guy. And to be honest, I could spend a whole podcast talking about the events that happened in that time, but I won't. I'll gloss over a little bit, but I can go back to it at any stage. The kind of the way it formed parts of my brain and belief systems and all that kind of stuff. I can hit back on that later. But so growing up in that time, I was a protector for mum, which meant and to be honest, it was probably through, no, not probably, it was through no choice of my own, because there was no one else there to protect her.
Yeah.
I had siblings, but they were kind of, I guess, just a bit scared of the situation. And as we would be with kids, I think I'm just lucky, I don't know. I was just a little bit different than I wanted to. I wanted to protect mum, because I felt if I didn't protect mum, then I guess I wasn't protecting myself. So ultimately, I was it was my safety I was looking out for as well. Anyway, so that was happening in that time, and then I kind of went into high school, and I was still a highly anxious kid. I was wetting the bed all through primary school, and then it was still even into high school.
Yeah.
And I even wet the bed up until about 14, going on nearly 15. And just through that, and I think I was looking back on it now. I was just highly anxious, but I probably tried ways to hide it. No one had any real idea. But I think there was also I guess anxiety, or whatever it may have been, in addition to whatever it may have been, in addition to anxiety, something was making me tired. So was it actually feelings of depression? Was it the comorbidity, or was it just that my anxiety was making me not sleep at night, and therefore I was just really tired in the morning, and then didn't want to get out of bed, and that kind of stuff? It's kind of hard to tell. But my high school time wasn't necessarily, I mucked around at school. It was more about seeing friends and that kind of stuff. But I didn't enjoy high school at all. It was just, I kind of by the time I was, say, 14, 15, who's going to be a happy, confident kid if I'm still kind of hiding the fact that I wet the bed occasionally? Those two things don't really correlate with each other. It's just, I have to put on a facade of and then almost be scared that people are going to find out something at that kind of thing about who I was. So, an area of my personality. But that's how kind of school was for me. But I guess being in school then, like primary school, high school, and with those experiences going on, as I said, I can spend way more time talking about it and the things that were happening and all that. But it's like, I feel that time, although it was tough, I won't say it was bad, because it wasn't bad, because it helped me form who I am today. But it was tough. It's like I'm glad it all happened, because it's really enabled me to have an empathy and understanding, and I guess a connection to people that have experienced similar things. So that was my high school time. So academically was not a thing. So it was just more about experiencing certain things. I think it was almost like an apprenticeship for who I am today.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because when I was growing up, like, our parents stayed together, and then we got to early high school and mum and dad separated, and me and my little brother went with my mum. And I think that's when my obsessive compulsive disorder really ramped up, because I went into that protector mode as well. And I would spend hours each night locking up the house to keep us safe at night. Hours like checking doors and like appliances were off so that we wouldn't burn the house down in our sleep and all this type of stuff. And so kind of went into that protector mode, and that's carried on until today, like as a dad now, and I've lived with that for 30 years or so. But it's really interesting how you talked a bit about that protector mode, and almost like living a double life. You're trying to hide it, a lot. You know, you go to school, you kind of
Mm.
put your home life at home and your school life at school, and but you
Mm.
really are exhausted because you're living this double life and you're not sure where to get help or how to get help or what help looks
Mm.
like, or even if there's anything wrong with you. You know, it's the anxiety or depression or whatever it is, and
Mm.
um, yeah, it really resonates with me there, that protector story. But fast forward a little bit, and then you went into, was it boxing or mixed martial arts? Which was the one that you went into as you got a bit older?
As well, it was around. So there was a stage where I'd really kind of started to retreat, kind of like where the anxiety got really too high, really
Yeah,
really high, and even with the stage, I was actually talking about it on a podcast the other day where it was only just recently I remembered about this at the age of about 16, where I left school. There was like a 6 to 12 month period where I left school prior to starting work. So
yeah,
like the start of 16, people would come over and visit me. Like my friends would come over and visit me, let's say on the weekend, like a group of 3 or 4 of them, and they might come over in a car because one of them might have been 18 or something like that. And they'd park out the front. I knew it was them, and I could hear the music, and they probably wanted me to go out and see them. And I was crippled by anxiety, didn't want to leave the
yeah,
house.
yeah,
And how I forget, I don't know how I forgot that. Like just until recently, man, that was a massive part of my life that I was so anxious. Like it
mm,
was just crazy. But I'm glad I'm remembering that now because it's like another thing that I can kind of chat to about with people. Because people that see me who I am today, they would not know that that was a thing.
uh,
That like as we were saying before, like we get up at whatever time and record podcasts with people on the other side of the world who are professionals that we probably should be nervous and anxious talking
yeah,
to. Anyway, I was about 16 when I started karate,
yeah,
and that was a massive turning point of where there was a man there that kind of, or not kind of, there's a man there who was the head trainer. His name is
mhm,
Billy Monet. He's like world famous, and in Australia, especially for being this amazing martial artist and just like a Terminator, but in a nice way. He's someone that I just highly respect to this day, more than anything and anyone that I know personally. And he kind of, without really knowing it, took me under his wing in a way where he actually did show belief in me.
mhm,
He saw value, even if it might have just been from what I knew, like in that area where we were training. But where I thought for most of my upbringing, especially in the high school time, I thought I was a real wimp
yeah,
because I was relatively, although I probably put on a facade sometimes, but I was scared. I was a scared, I mean, like as I said, as I wet the bed for so
yeah,
long, that is a sign of someone who's anxious and is scared. That's why it kind of happens at nighttime. So I wasn't going to feel tough. I wasn't going to feel tough in any way until kind of I was able to challenge that, and that martial arts was an area that helped me challenge that. And yeah, just on one of the first sessions that we did, I was able to kind of inadvertently do something or some things that kind of proved that I was strong and I had like fire in my belly,
yeah,
and got this guy's attention. And yeah, from it was after my first class where he said to someone who'd taken me there that night, and he's like, that guy could be a pit bull if you wanted to be.
mhm, yeah,
And hearing that, like from me just saying what my backstory was with going through high school and primary school, for someone that would like, I had such high respect for them the first time that I met them, and they were just so tough and mentally and physically, but still nice. And to say that about me, I mean, that might not sound great to everyone, as in a pit bull, but that basically what that meant is this guy has seen a strength in me and a value in me and a belief in me that I could be strong,
yeah,
or that I am strong, and that nobody else has had it before. So like that really changed, I guess, the way my brain started to work from then on.
yeah,
And looking at the mechanisms of it, like that was a real belief changer in me. So that's where I started, and then from about 16 to 18, I started doing karate, and I got my black belt,
yeah,
and then I discovered kickboxing at about 19, going into 20, 21, 22. Started kickboxing in the ring at the age of 24, and I loved that. I had 9 fights around Victoria and around Melbourne. Like seriously, the best thing that someone like me was able to do, just to change the way they think about themselves.
yep,
Like like some people do it through sports like that. Some people could do it many different ways. Like some people might feel strong, so that they don't need to challenge it in that way. But I guess I needed to be able to challenge it. Some people would challenge it by fighting outside of the ring.
Yeah.
And then, you
Yeah.
know, and I was able to channel it in that way, which was slightly more positive, where it was both people consenting to it.
Yeah. Did you find that you got anxious before fights?
Man, I can't explain to people how scared you get before a fight. It's actually to the point where you're nearly vomiting that you
Yeah.
get so nervous.
Yeah.
It's not an anxiety thing where like your regular kind of anxiety, like it's like your social anxiety or your general anxiety disorder. It's not those things.
Yeah.
It's more about because you know, this is probably a good way, a better way of explaining it. So especially from talking to people on the podcast and stuff that I've learned from my own study, is that, and this is probably a real misconception to people, that anxiety is like a spectrum thing for one. So everyone will have anxiety in some way. I mean, we're human, we have anxiety. Some have more higher levels of it to where it becomes almost just distressing, or it can start affecting our life, whether
Yep.
it's socially or generally, whatever. But everyone has anxiety. We're human. We're supposed to have anxiety in some form, you know, to keep us safe. And a lot of the time anxiety can get to the point where like it's a little bit out of control, and like our brain is starting to make up things just to keep us safe. So that's how I kind of understand anxiety. With this one, with these nerves, it wasn't something that was fake. You have a genuine thing in front of you, which
Yeah.
is scary. So that's where it was a bit different. So the kind of feelings, the kind of feelings that you had with this thing, it was like incredibly nerve-wracking to start off with. So especially maybe the first 4 to 5 fights, the second, like maybe not the second, but the next kind of 3 or 4, it was a little bit different. And you kind of know as soon as you touch gloves, when that bell goes, you know, when you touch
Yep.
gloves and you start, well, you start to recognize that as soon as you touch gloves and something happens, your nerves are gone.
Yeah.
100% they're gone, and it's just you bang, you're in the fight mode.
Yeah.
But prior to that, man, like I can't explain that. That is the hardest part of the fight. That's where probably fights in a lot of people could, you know, attest to this, that a lot of fights are won or lost prior to actually jumping in the ring, because you can get so nervous.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
remember feeling the same when
mind.
I grew up playing footy, and I remember,
Yeah,
you know, exactly the same feeling before the
yeah,
game, and I'd be like, you know, going to the toilet 5 times, and
yeah.
you know,
Oh
feel like
man,
I'm gonna be sick sometimes, and yeah.
yeah.
But then as soon as you cross
A
that line, it's gone, and that ball goes up, it's gone. So
Yeah, and I think what it is, it's or one of the things, what it is, where you start to recognize those areas where it's going to disappear. So I knew when we touched gloves, it was going to go, but it was a horrendous feeling. Like
yeah.
I don't like that. There's no way of making it go. The only way of making it go is starting to get used to it happening, and then you
Yeah.
kind of, you know, like there's no way of making the prior to a fight that you're not going to have that unless you go through it and go through it and go through it and go through it. You know, you hear about kickboxers or fighters or whatever having, you know, closer to 80, 90, 100 fights, and they're still getting nervous. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think that nerves or whatever, you know, however people would explain that, but I would say more nerves than anxiety, because it's a
Yeah.
genuine threat in front of you. That would make a lot of people not want to do it.
Yeah. I'd be in
Same as
flight
footy.
mode, I reckon.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I'd run, mate. I wouldn't go near a ring.
Yeah, I guess like you've got to have a real need or desire. I think either you grew up maybe fighting, and you know, you had a lot of fights or something like that. And I wasn't like that, but I had a fight inside me that I needed
Yeah.
to really challenge, because I genuinely thought I was a wimp, and I
Mm.
thought that I was, you know, I thought that I was defective, and I thought, you know, there was something wrong. And I guess jumping in the ring, mate, it's not, I wouldn't say that everyone needs to do that, but it was the way that the universe gave me to help challenge these beliefs that I had about myself. Because
Yeah.
to be honest, it wasn't anything else that I had there that I knew of that was going to help me challenge them. So it was perfect. It was
Yeah.
scary and it was tough, incredibly tough,
Yeah.
but it was cool. And then so yeah, just after my 9th fight, which is about July 2010, in the next month or two after that, is where I just started to develop a vision impairment,
Mm-hmm.
potentially through getting hit, potentially through smoking and having drugs when I was younger, potentially just through the fact that it was a hereditary thing. No one could give me a conclusive
Yeah.
answer of why it happened. So like in my blood, there's a thing that's like the gene or the whatever it is, genetically, I've got this thing in my bloodline, my family's bloodline, that causes in some of the males, the females aren't affected by it. The females are carriers.
Mm-hmm.
We some of us can lose vision, but no one previous to me, previous to my grandpa or great grandpa even knew about it. So maybe like ancestors prior,
Yeah.
maybe they had it, but we didn't know. So yeah, about the September, October, November time in 2010 is over about a 2 or 3 month period, I'd lost about 90% of my vision.
Yep.
And I guess with that, my my license, my ability to fight in the ring, I had to give up my my business at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of in moving on from that time is where I had to completely start restructuring my life, but also completely restructuring the way I thought about myself initially,
Yeah.
and then the world.
Yeah. So how old were you when you lost your vision?
26.
26. So quite young.
Yeah.
To go from fully seeing to 90% vision loss, well, I could imagine that would be quite traumatizing. How would you describe that feeling, like when you lost it? Like, what were you going through emotionally and mentally at that stage?
Yeah. It's it's a really interesting thing to look back on now, because it's like I don't know how I handled it, and I could say, oh, there was certain things in my childhood that happened that made me build a resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Emotionally, or was the fact that because of certain parenting styles or attachment styles that helped me kind of, so just say as an example, was it the fact that I had to develop like a more of an avoidant attachment style, which kind of helped me build walls?
Yep.
And then was I able to build a wall to what was really happening? Was it that? There's a lot of like questions I have around that, but realistically, I was able to handle it.
Yep.
I handled it, and I didn't freak out. I didn't freak out where probably everybody else was freaking out.
Yeah.
But I think it was also the fighter in me as well.
Yeah.
And so I guess to give you like an idea maybe of the time, of a time when I kind of had been given like the harder kind of diagnosis of what it might have been, was when I saw a neurologist after seeing an eye doctor, then an eye specialist, and then they sent me to like someone in the eye and ear hospital where I spent 3 days. They couldn't figure it out. Then I went to this more local neurologist. This neurologist goes, "I'm pretty sure you have this thing, which is called optic neuropathy, which is basically means the nerves behind my eyes will stop working."
Yep.
And then he goes, "You're gonna go blind."
Yeah.
But he gave it to me as if he was telling me I had the common cold. But you can't always expect professors or doctors to have the greatest bedside manner. It's probably hard for their brain to comprehend. It's like how could you be so smart and then be able to have the I guess the social personal skills as well? It'd be very rare.
Yeah.
So I can look back on that time and understand why that might have been. But I basically was given it like boom, that's it. And I remember sitting in my car after I left that office, because I was still driving at the time. I hadn't lost 90% by then. I'd probably lost about 50% of my vision, and I definitely shouldn't have been driving, but I still was driving. And I was just crying in the car, just going, "What the fuck is happening? What is happening?" And then I remember going home, and I just like sitting on my decking, and it was, I still remember, it was like a really sunny afternoon, and just like sitting on the deck, just kind of having tears coming out of my eyes, not like a crying that was like, why me, because wasn't something that my brain doesn't function like that, but it was like probably just letting it all flow, letting it kind of wash over me. But the predominant thought that I had kind of through that, me sitting on the deck being, I guess relatively like emotional, I guess, or accepting it, was I'm like, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
That's the predominant thought that I had, was I'm going to be happy. Like I've been through so much already. Nothing's going to stop me being happy. I don't really care what this is. I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
And then the way I was able to process it was pretty quickly. I was sleeping when I had to give up my business and not really work and all this kind of stuff, it was tough, but I was spending a lot of time sleeping during the day and be up all night. Like, it was just, certain things went out of whack. And then I would go to the gym in the middle of the night. I'd ride 2 suburbs away on my bike with a little light,
Yeah.
do some funny things, but just to keep myself sane.
Yeah.
But then pretty quickly I realized the way that I'm going to be able to manage this more effectively and I guess efficiently. And whether I realized this like consciously or subconsciously, I don't know, but I realized I needed to have a better relationship with myself, because I figured if I'm going to have like no vision, where I'm going to have, like, from what I pictured was like, seeing black, which is not the reality. People that see, like, have vision impairment do not see black. It's just different colors and blurs and, kind of hard to explain. But realistically, if I'm going to see nothing, then it's going to be me. That is the predominant thing, is going to be me and my thoughts. And if I'm not happy with me and my thoughts, that's going to make it pretty tough. So pretty quickly I started to realize the things that really needed to be changed was the relationship that I had with myself. So that's what really started to become at the forefront. What can I do? It wasn't like, oh, how can I stop being blind, or how can I do this, or people, how can I, it wasn't like that. It was like, what can I do to change?
Yeah.
That was my coping mechanism for it.
Would you say this is the birth of the Mind Tradie, or did the Mind Tradie come a fair bit of time later?
I think the birth of the Mind Tradie was about 4 or 5 years old. I mean, the birth of, like when I started to have those experiences with the stepfather, I think that's when I realized. Well, even look, to be honest, I haven't even touched on a whole other household where I was living with another step parent, where my dad remarried, and like just emotional kind of, where one house was like more physical kind of stuff, I guess, violence or abuse or whatever you'd say, and the other one was more emotional. So that's around that time is probably where things really started to. I guess I just took things differently. Like I was someone who always stood up for myself, or stood up for, I guess, others or whatever. And that's probably where it really kicked off. But with the vision impairment stuff, where that really made a significant impact to all that kind of and that stuff that I'd previously talked about, like where it kind of brought it to the front of mind and really brought it forward or helped me manage it all, was the more vision I lost, the better I started seeing things.
Yeah.
And that meant the better I started seeing things previously, the better I started seeing my future, the better I started seeing who I was and all that kind of stuff. So I think it helped me manage, and helped me just the way that I ironically, the way that I saw things was just completely changed after that. And I think it almost brought not a maturity in the way that I slowed down or anything like that, but got old, but it kind of accelerated where I was in the world.
Yeah.
That's best way to explain it. Like where I was emotionally, my emotional intelligence was accelerated, where I feel like I jumped 30 years.
Yeah.
In a good, positive way.
Yeah. And when did you start your psych degree? Was it around this time or shortly after?
No, you know what? I started my the vision impairment happened started around July, August, September kind of time in 2010, and I started my psych degree in 2014. So there was a period of time from finishing my business at the end of 2010, and I talk about this a lot, that 2011 was a time there was a massive growth period in that time, because I couldn't find work. I just couldn't find work. I even wrote letters to the local newspapers and went to employment agencies and just couldn't find work. I'm talking, not even supermarkets would hire me because of my vision impairment.
Yeah.
So that was incredibly tough. And for someone that has a brain as active as mine, there was like two sides to that. So it was incredibly tough, where I was nearly going insane because I wasn't working. But that time of not working, and I would walk sometimes twice a day, like 5 to 8 Ks, sometimes twice a day. And it gave me just time to think and work on myself without, I didn't really know how much work I was doing, but I knew I was doing something. And so that helped me do that. So if I was working at that time, I might not have been able to have the same growth. So at the end of 2011, I realized I wanted to get into something else that would help me find work. And then I started a community development diploma at our local TAFE in 2012. And then somewhere in 2013, I started working with young people in
Yep.
the youth program at the council. I realized I wanted to work with them on a deeper level. Like, it was cool to work with them,
Yep.
but I wanted to be able to understand it, understand them a bit better, and also understand ways of working with them more effectively. But much like you with your social work
Yeah.
studies, like you love working with people, but if you can have something that backs up how you work with them, like, that's even
Yeah.
better. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure even if you had the chance to work with them without that, you'd love it. But it helps inform more effective ways to do that. So yeah, after working with young people for a little bit, I realized I wanted to work with people, not just young people, but I guess a more effective level, not on a high level where it's better than others, but just I'm able to understand them more, and I'm also understand what I'm doing with them, and
Yeah.
understand more effective ways of doing that. So yeah, that's what I did. So I started psych degree 2014 because I did it part time. It's like three degree part time, obviously 6 years. So I finished in 2020,
Yep.
or just prior to 2020, and then so mid 2020 is when I finished my degree. I started my honors last year, and I'm about to finish my honors
Yep.
in August, and then to go on to my masters. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's such an awesome, like, I remember when I started my social work degree as well, and I had a similar, so I had this lived experience of mental illness for so long, 20,
yeah,
25, 30 years or so. Knew I wanted to do something in that space, was looking for work at the same time. Like, I had a job, but I didn't like it, and I wanted to move into a different job, into the mental health space, but I couldn't quite get there. But I remember
yeah.
sitting in that first few lectures, and my brain just came alive with different concepts and the ways of seeing the world differently. And it sounds like you've had a pretty similar experience with that as well, and understanding the theory behind knowledge and application, and how we can help people to be the better versions of themselves as well. So
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
And I guess the other thing is that it helped me realize that it was a part of me that I had never accessed. I'd never been able to access and like that more. I guess my intelligence. It's not, my intelligence compared to a lot of people that are doing uni or academic stuff, it doesn't really beat them or trump them or even compare to them. But I've
Yeah.
got an intelligence that I never thought that I had. But I've
Yeah.
also got like a work ethic and a conscientiousness that helps me kind of get to a level where I need to be, and kind of, to the level of study and where I want to move forward. Like, I never had that before. Like,
Yeah.
I don't remember doing any real significant work in high school at all. I just mucked around. And
Yeah.
to feel smart, or smarter than what I used to. That's how my studies have helped me be able to do that, to the point where I'm like, I love nerding out on psychology and stuff. It's like, I
Yeah.
love it. It's brought, as you say, it's kind of opened up a part of our brain that we probably didn't realize existed.
Definitely was dormant in my brain for a long time.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, mature age study as well. Like, it was very different for me in my undergrad. So I did my undergrad straight out of high school.
Oh, really?
Did it just a Bachelor of Social Science. I was going to go down the psych line, but decided to go down anthropology in the end. But I didn't really try. I think I went to work more than I went to uni. It was just a piece of paper. But then coming back and actually picking a degree that I really loved, like the social work degree, and pursuing mental health in that space. As a mature age student, I think the second time around, I brought that lived experience of mental illness with me, and a lived experience of being a dad and a husband and just a bloke as well. And I think that really enabled my brain to go further than it ever went with my undergrad, because it felt like high school and undergrad, whereas mature age, study, you're there because you're not just there for ticking a box that you've done uni. You're there because you actually want to pursue something, like a degree to help people to do something. So
Yeah.
that's what I found, as and I did mine part-time, and the balancing act of juggling family. I was working full-time as well throughout, all the way through my degree as well. So
Yeah.
it's quite a task, I think, as a mature age student, to go and do some study and balance life as on the outside as well. And but you're a dad as well.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
us a bit about fatherhood, what that's been like for you, living with a vision impairment.
I guess fortunately, like, I don't know, maybe because my vision impairment happened a lot earlier than my daughter being born. So my daughter was born in 2015, and my vision impairment, happened in 2010. So I
Yeah.
had a lot of time to adjust.
Yeah.
So like I wouldn't even know. To be honest, I feel that I'm more capable, or not even more capable, but just as capable. And in many, to be honest, in many other ways, I'm more capable than your average dad. Because I've
Mhm.
got so much energy.
Yeah.
I got so much belief. I've got a fire in my belly that probably your average person doesn't have. Where they're starting to settle down in their late 30s.
Yeah.
Man, I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
But like, I guess fatherhood is, particularly with a young girl, has been the best thing. It was like I mean, even if it was a boy, it would still be the best thing. But there was
Yeah.
just something special about having a girl. And we always, I don't know, I'd always wanted a girl, which is probably most men probably wouldn't say that, or a lot of
Mhm.
men wouldn't say that. But there was just something special about it, because I think, like, I think I wanted to, whether it was consciously or not, bring up a girl that was confident,
Yeah.
and that was able to live in a way that was just her, not that didn't have, I don't know, like, how can I explain it? But it was just bring up a happy, confident girl, because I'd been around, my mum had her own things going on. My stepmom back in the day definitely had her own things going on, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, I want to bring up a happy, confident girl, and that's, we're so fortunate that we're able to get that. But it's been able to, the number one thing fatherhood has been able to bring out of me is that love, showing love.
Yeah.
Um, and like, I probably still struggle with that, with doing it with like adults or my partner sometimes. But being able to do it with my daughter is, nah, man, there's no barriers to that. Like hugging her,
Yeah.
kissing her, telling her I love her all the time. Like I didn't, because I didn't grow up with that,
Yeah.
people doing that to me necessarily, because everyone had all their own things going on. To be able to be like that, and like live in a world now where we can do that. So we've got this extremely happy little girl who loves showing love. She loves receiving love, and I mean, man, we're doing exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's like, I just love it so much, and like I couldn't imagine loving anything anymore.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and it can, obviously, the same thing. It just continues to grow all the time. It doesn't matter if they're a boy or girl, whatever. It's just your own flesh and blood, and something special about it, like on
Yeah.
a level that is very hard to explain.
I remember saying something similar, and I think my wife didn't really like me at the time when I said it. Like, it was when
Mm.
our boy was born. So our boy is 5, and our
Yeah.
daughter is 2. And I said something along the lines of, like, when they came out, like, it was like the purest love for a father and a child is having that child. And I think my wife's like, well, what about me? And I've been apologizing to her ever since. But
Yeah.
it's just that, like, 100% pure. There's nothing that's tainted it. There's no anything.
Yeah.
It's just pure love.
Yeah.
That father child love. Yeah.
That's a really good point. It is probably the ultimate, and as I say, most pure. And I think the way that we would love, I'd say most men would love their partners, girlfriends, wives, whatever they are. That's obviously different. And then also, I think the way that we say love ourselves is really different as well. And this was explained to me recently on a guest that I had, a doctor in Arizona, who talks about relationships, attachment, healing, and all this kind of stuff. And I was saying how I was speaking to a psychologist, because I see psychologists like, maybe, I don't know, over 6 to 10 sessions every couple of years or something like that, just to help me get, I don't know, get to different levels of understanding. It doesn't mean that I'm in any distress, but I just see a psych, just to help me go
Yep.
through certain things. And I remember a psych about 3 or 4 years ago saying, the way that you feel about your daughter, like, do you feel that way about yourself? I'm like, no way, no way.
Yeah.
I'm like, just this warmth and this, like, overflowing of love to my little girl, like, like nothing could has ever helped me kind of bring that out before. And I think the psych might have been trying to say, in some ways, that, like, I should have, or she was definitely trying to say that I should have more love for myself, and that's
Yeah.
fair enough. But
Yeah.
I couldn't understand that. And to be honest, this is where I think there's a real misunderstanding from people to say like self-love and all that. So that level of love that I have for my daughter, I will not feel for myself. But that does not mean you can't show love to yourself. So maybe this is more specific to men.
Mm-hmm.
So recently, as I said, this person from and this doctor from Arizona helped me realize that maybe a more relevant way of showing love as a man to ourselves is more things like self-respect.
Yeah.
And that kind of it. And I'm like, yes, when I feel the self-respect, that's when I really start to enjoy and appreciate and kind of love who I am. When I do things where I respect who I am and the way that I've done it. So I'm not going to feel that nice warmth love for myself the way I feel my daughter. But I do, I guess, love who I am more and what I can do when I do things that help me gain self-respect. And that can be done in a lot of different ways. You know, it could have been done when I was younger, you know, being that protector, maybe when I was jumping in the ring, or maybe the way that I study now, maybe the way that I parent. I don't know. Like everybody's different, but what can help you gain self-respect? That's my form of self-love. Maybe that's more specific to me for whatever reason, but I grew up and lived predominantly in a life that existed where I didn't like who I was. I didn't like who I was at all. And then I guess I thought I was broken. I thought I was defective. That's why these people weren't giving me attention, as in like, you know, family and all that kind of stuff. They weren't necessarily giving me loving attention. So a child's brain goes, oh, well, there must be something wrong and all that kind of stuff. So as I got older, I started to develop ways that I started to feel better about myself. And yeah, looking back on it, it was ways that I developed respect for who I was.
Yeah.
So I think that's a way we can, I think as men, kind of get a better grasp on what people might call self-love. So that's how I do it. Because I'm not going to feel that way about myself and, you know, have like a bath and just really appreciate who I am and that kind of, like, that's a real feminine energy, which is fine for some people to do that. But the way that I appreciate and love myself doesn't come that way. Some people it might, and if people do it that, like, whatever way that you can appreciate yourself and love yourself, and that's cool. But that didn't compute with the way my brain was formed, and so because of that, I just thought it didn't exist for me.
Yeah.
Like self-love or the liking yourself or whatever it was didn't exist, but it does. But it needed to be explained to me in a different way.
In a different way. It's amazing that you've said that, because I had last week on the podcast, and it's going to be coming out this Monday, I had a chat with a guy called Anthony Simon who does Fit and Well. It's a counselling-based gym in Adelaide, and he's a social worker. And it's the whole concept around exercise-based therapy, and he works with a lot of youth who come in. Some of them have never been to a gym before, but they're all doing weights and talking about things at the same time. And I brought up this concept around, he works with a lot of teenagers. I would assume that they would be talking a bit about drugs and alcohol, starting to experiment with that stuff when you're in your teenage years. And he looked at it from this perspective of respect for body. And yeah, it's, you know, it could be fun to go out and get pissed or, you know, get on the drugs or whatever when you're at that age. But if you really want to try and work through, say, anxiety or depression, but you're getting on the piss every weekend, how is that showing your body respect? And when he came at it from that perspective, a lot of the youth that he worked with could really articulate that and go, oh, yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. Whereas if they were to sit on a couch in a traditional counseling setting, that kind of connection might not be there. So I think it's what you're saying is it's really like self-love or self-care is different for us all. And for guys, well, for everybody, it's not necessarily a massage and going to get a facial done or doing yoga for some people, or meditation. For some people, it's hitting the gym. For some people, it's doing some psychology study, doing social work study. It's you know, running. It could be exercise. It could be building something. It could be changing their whole perspective. So I think it's really great point that you've picked up on there is that you just needed to find a way that it talked to you, that self-love. And for guys, particularly. And a lot of us grew up in an age where self-care was getting pissed with your mates on the weekend, and it still is, you know. But if we can slowly change that narrative and respect our bodies more and respect the relationships around us more and show ourselves more love or care or respect, I think we can go a long way to trying to change that narrative and trying new things and getting out there a bit more and being our authentic self, because we both talk a bit about our authentic self a lot on our
Yeah.
channels as well. And I think we don't have to be this cookie cutter version of masculinity that we've grown up with.
Yeah.
We can be soft, but we can also be masculine at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that is a really interesting point that I think I've started to get my head around a bit more. I think, well, particularly with myself. So I've got, and I guess I've been able to grow as like a more like masculine energy around myself, where I might have felt more of that. I don't know. Well, I wouldn't say it was a feminine energy, but I didn't feel masculine anymore. I didn't feel that particularly when I was younger, and then I was able to do things that helped me grow that, feeling stronger and feeling powerful and feeling like just feeling more masculine. And whether it means I'm doing that through mental health or mental growth, or doing it for physical health or physical growth, it doesn't really matter. Whatever makes me feel more like that masculine stuff. And so you don't have to be a man to feel masculine. That's what I was growing. But I've also realized that I'm also I'm aware of a more feminine energy. Doesn't mean that I want to have it, or I even enjoy it, but I can't help it. I have an understanding of it, particularly maybe because I grew up with a single mum for most of my life. So I'm aware of that. So if you look at my podcast, it's literally a 50-50 split. If you look at my Instagram and you're going to my insights, it's a 50-50 split. And I love that so much. I love that so much, because it's like I can connect, on different levels, where there's probably some guys that go, oh, look at him, he's talking about, whatever he's talking, and they probably see me as less masculine. Like, I couldn't give any less of a shit. But I mean, that's probably how I get perceived by some people, because I do talk about mental health. I talk about my emotions and like understanding them, but I'm not like, oh, get in touch with your emotions now. It's more about, no, this emotion is probably going to make you act in a certain way, and like it's. And so I do have a bit of a real mix of both. Doesn't mean I like one more than the other, but I do like having. I'm proud that I've got an awareness of both, and like in other people as well. And I actually forget why I mentioned that, but there was something that you said that made me mention that. But there was something you said there that made me mention it, and it made me realize that it was more the fact that I realized that I'm proud that I've got an awareness of both, because it helps me in what I do. Like, I can talk as a school counselor, I can talk to younger boys and really, really connect to them, really do really well with them. And then also, they wouldn't be the main people that I see, but maybe a third of the people that I see. It could be girls that I connect with. It was, girls in the high school girls that come in and see me in my office or in our wellbeing area. Like, I can connect with them as well, and I'm really proud of that. Like, I really love that I've got that.
And I think, without assuming too much, I reckon that would help you connect with your daughter a lot more.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And maybe I can connect with other girls, at that younger levels, because of my daughter, or maybe work together. I'm not sure, but I feel great about that, because I want to be a psychologist, but I can't just be a psychologist that wants to work with men. Like, I'm sure there probably is that out there, and there is a need for that. But I like the fact that, because the way that I see mental health or personal growth, whatever it is, I'm not saying like male or female, even though this is a Mindful Men podcast, so maybe I should be talking more about that. But the way I see it is, like, we've got a brain, and a being and a soul, and like, it's just about experiencing that. So whether we're males or females, or masculine energy, feminine energy, doesn't really matter to me. It's more about connecting to who we are more than anything. That's why. So I feel proud that I can kind of work with both.
And I think you touched on there that the social media space. So the Mindful Men is tailored towards men, but it aims to bring in female voices to the conversation, because it's important that we just don't hear the masculine perception of the world and life. And in order to be, the mindfulness comes into that holistic living and that authentic living. It's just, there's more than one side of a story type thing. It's hearing, our daughters speak, our sons speak, our mums, our aunties, our brothers, our mates from across the globe speak as well. It's about that holistic perception. And what drew me to the Mind Tradie, and I want to talk about the Mind Tradie now for a little bit, is the way you come about it is is that balance of masculinity, but also the softer side of you, and it's so forth. Because you can see, when I first started on Instagram, I was looking for blokes like you to follow and get some inspiration and draw some strength in myself. But the first few that I come across were those hyper masculine guys who were like, fucking grow some balls and, be a man and all this type of stuff. And I think, well, that's not really where I see masculinity as being. I think that's the, as you said, a spectrum. That's the end spectrum. And I want to be more in a balanced spectrum. And then I came across yourself and a few others like you as well that I've started to follow and engage with. And that's probably where Mindful Men also grew as well. It's like I can be not hyper masculine. I can be a bit of a softer version and talk about my emotions and feelings and help other blokes and boys and women and girls do it too, because I don't just have male followers, I have female followers as well. So but for the Mind Tradie, so for those who haven't come across the Mind Tradie, and I'll put the links to the Mind Tradie in the show notes as well, but can you give us a bit of a rundown of what it is and what you aim to do with it? And I know that you're looking to expand into some one-to-one coaching as well with it.
Yeah. So very, very recently, I made the decision that, like, because of because very recently, the avenue that I have to go down, all the time that it's going to take for me to get to becoming a psychologist is being extended through no fault of my own.
Yeah.
It's now been extended by 2 years because they've now said that we have to do a master's,
Mhm.
where previous to this, next year, it would have been that I just can jump into doing an internship and basically start out like working as a psych.
Yep.
Anyway, because of that, it's been it's been extended, and I'm happy to do the extension. But I'm like, no, I'm gonna start doing my own business again. This is what drives me in my life, to work with people, but also run my own thing, or like eventually. And I'm like, I don't want to wait another 2 years for that. So I'm like, I can work with people now in coaching, because not everybody that wants support or help or organization in their life or get their head around their situation. Not everyone needs a psych. Not everyone needs a counselor. Like,
Yep.
there's things out there. There's an avenue. There's a, I guess lack of a better word, there's a market there's a need for people out there. And look, I've got skills of working with people, and I'm like, why? I'm not going to wait to use these skills. When I finish my studies, well, I can use them now. I'm not going to use my psychology, like sit down like one-on-one doing psych stuff, because I wouldn't want to do that, because it's not only would it be like illegal to call myself that, but I don't want to do that. But there is ways I can work with people that can help people get more out of themselves, get a better understanding of their life, get more out of who they are, and whether it's physically, performance-wise, mentally, whatever it is. So that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's, I kind of touched on it before, but it can be males, it can be females, that can be teenagers, whatever. Like I just anybody has the ability to get more out of themselves if that's what they want to do. Some people don't care about that, and then obviously that's not the person who's going to seek someone like me out. But someone who wants to get more out of themselves for whatever way, and whether they recognize it's because it's emotional things holding them back, it's belief system that's holding them back, whatever it is. Maybe they just have the intuition that something is holding them back and they want to get more out of themselves. Whatever it is, that's the kind of person that will seek me out, and that's the kind of person I'll work best with. So that's kind of what I'm going into now. So website coming out, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, where people will be able to check out what I do and get a better understanding what I do. But that's kind of that's the coaching thing that's starting very, very soon, that I'll be doing that while I study, so I'll make myself even busier.
Yeah.
But on Instagram, I just love putting out stuff that I guess initially is relevant to me, but not just relevant to me where it's like, oh, this suits my life, but I mean relevant to me, that I go, I like this. I like this information. If I like this information, well, that's a first step. And if I want to put out the information that I like, someone might get something else from it. Like I'm not going to go, oh, there's a need for information here, but I know nothing about it, so I'll talk about it. No, I was like, something's either through my study or my own life will come up. I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this. And I think that means, for me, I'm going to say something, I'm going to record it. If I like it, bang, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll put it out. If someone else gets something from it, if someone else likes it, or comments on it, shares on it, that's a secondary thing. So I'm not putting out there to go, will people like this? That's just a bonus for me that someone might take something from it. I just like that I can put good, positive, I guess, knowledge out there. And if someone takes something from it, if a post that I put out there got no likes, it wouldn't bother me, because I'm like, at least I'll put something good out into the world that hopefully would be knowledgeable. But yeah, as I said, if someone likes it, take something from it, it's a bonus. But the most important thing to me is that I put something out there that I like. That's good. So that's kind of where I'm at. And it's like, as I said, it doesn't matter who you are, what energy you have. It's like, if you want to grow, if you want to grow, whatever it is, physically, mentally, whatever it is, but if you want to experience yourself more, I think that's like the part of the human experience is there's struggle. It's like we are not just automatically our authentic selves. We are not automatically our, I guess, we're not just allowing our spiritual kind of self come through more. We have things that for some reason prevent that and get in the way and provide barriers or obstacles. But it's like making our way through that. And it's like, when we do make our way through certain obstacles or events or experiences that are tough, then when we get our head around that, well, then we become more of who we are, and we can experience more of who we are. So when we see a psychologist, well, we might, or a counselor, whoever you are, like, it's social work, you can speak to someone like yourself with those skills as well, and you start to drop those emotional chains when you start to get a better understanding, and you can become more of who you are. That's what, for me, that's what about the human experience. Well, that's what I've experienced anyway. It's like, the more that you go through, the more that you can become more of who you are. It's like, but just for some reason, we're not just automatically like who we truly are to our fullest extent. I mean, it's there on the inside, but there's things that we need to do to bring it out. And so that's kind of what the Mind Tradie is. It's like, as I say, it's like helping build that ultimate version of ourselves, or the best version, or at least the version we want to be. And just through gaining a bit of understanding of things that have happened, the way it's formed our brain, our thought patterns, our belief systems, which I love talking about. I could easily do a whole podcast episode on that, because it's just, it's crazy. But it's building. The Mind Tradie is about helping people build the ultimate version, or the version they want, and closing that gap between, I think it was what Carl Rogers said, between the ideal and the actual self. Well, what do you really ideally want to be, and what are you actually? How do you actually feel compared to your ideal? Closing that gap, and maybe no one will ever completely close that gap, but at least we can make it so that there's not much of a discrepancy between those two. I love doing that stuff, man.
And do you see that continuing after you've done your psych degree? Like, what's your vision for when you've finished your degree? Are you looking to have a private practice of mind tradies, or are you looking to go do a specific style of work?
I think ultimately would be a dream for me would be going to do private practice, or predominantly doing that with, even if it's just at the start, doing it in a school or something like that, which is basically pretty much what I'm doing now. Is I do counselling in the school, so the way I would do it as a psych wouldn't be too much different. It would more of the formalities would be different, but like just probably the way you've got to, or who you've got to answer to, and the way you do it might be slightly different. But seeing students for certain sessions during a week, I do that now, so it's not a whole lot different. So I would probably like to do that later on. But the ultimate dream, and actually, that is the wrong word to use, because a dream is something that you might like to happen, or it may happen. No, this is going to happen. This is and even a goal is the wrong word, because a goal is something that might happen. This is a thing that is going to happen. I will have a private practice one day, because I love having that. Because I had my own business as a tradesman back in the day, prior to 2010, and the freedom. And it is scary to think that you've got to get your own work and all that kind of stuff, but I love that. I can't wait to have that again. So I'll be doing psychology stuff through the Mind Tradie, but I'll be doing coaching stuff as well through that as well. So I'll continue that on. It won't just be like, oh, I'm a coach now and then I'll be a psych later. No, I can have both of those skills.
Wonderful. Now, so we talked a lot about the Mind Tradie, your upbringing, bit of a tough upbringing, but your resilience and your growth and your mindset, and that's all about what the Mind Tradie is that positive mindset. So you've got the one-to-one coaching now going, or coming out soon, if not already. What's some advice that you could give to someone who might be experiencing, whether or not it's family traumas or family challenges, like when you were younger, or a vision impairment, or things like that? that you could give them to maybe seek some support if they're struggling, whether or not it's contact you or another provider? What's something that you'd love to tell someone today to maybe make them make that call?
I love that you've asked me this question, Simon. I love it because it gives me the avenue to say it doesn't matter what kind of upbringing you had.
Mm-hmm.
You might have had an upbringing that was smooth sailing. You might have had the other end of the spectrum where there was trauma, there was abuse, whether it was sexual, physical, emotional, whatever it is. Like, it doesn't matter what your upbringing was like there. If
Yeah.
you're, say, 18 plus, it doesn't matter whether you're on, you're 60, whatever plus, doesn't really matter. If there's that, as I spoke about before, if there's that discrepancy between what you're wanting and what you're actually getting, or who you want to be and who you actually are, that you feel like, the ultimate thing I think people can do is question everything. And I mean, question the way that you think about yourself, what
Mhm.
you deserve. Do you feel good about yourself? Do you love yourself? Were you thinking like me that I was defective, I was broken, and so that led me to have a mindset sometimes that attracted certain things that reinforced that. It's like question everything. So yes, particularly if you had a rougher upbringing between the age of, say, birth and, say, 7, that is critical stages of development, and it can form the way that we see ourselves in
Mhm.
the world and what we deserve and all that kind of stuff. But other things can happen in other areas of our life as well. So, adolescence and teenage years, and also in our, we might have had a relationship where someone treated us horrendously for so long that they convinced us that we weren't deserving. So things can happen like across that lifespan. But question everything. Question why something might not be working out the way you want it to work out, whether it's something you want to achieve, the person you want to be, whatever it is, as I said, mental health, physical health. And there's ways that we can change that. So, like, if it's that you're not performing the way you want to perform, or you're not being healthy, do you want to be healthy? What like, literally whatever it is, because everybody's different. But if there's something that's not working out the way you want it to work out, there's always ways to change it.
Yeah.
But my advice would be to, I guess, if people are following you or following me, that's a great step. But
Yeah.
then reach out to someone. So whether it is reach out to a coach, reach
Mhm.
out to a social worker, reach out to a counselor, reach out to a psychologist, reach out to an online nutrition coach. Like, it doesn't really matter what you're reaching out, because your intuition will tell you probably the avenue that you need to reach out to, or reach out to someone and say, hey, look, this is happening. Who
Yeah.
should I reach out to? Like, just
Yeah.
reach out to someone, because there's always a way to become, that better. Not that it's a better version, but to feel better, I guess. Like, if we're feeling
Yeah.
down, or if we're feeling unhappy, or feeling like I used to feel like a watered down version of who I am, there's always ways to change it. I
Yeah.
guess my one was, I think maybe particularly like through childhood stuff that are probably harder to uh, discover about yourself, or what kind of effect they may have had on you as an adult. I would say probably, um, for me, a psychologist was the best person to talk to. But I mean,
Mhm.
like, that, everybody's different.
Yeah.
A coach could still help you with that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't necessarily, like, if you had childhood trauma that's affecting you now, I probably wouldn't necessarily go see a coach for that, because they've got skills, but I wouldn't say childhood trauma is their greatest skill. Maybe it is, but
No.
it's like, it wouldn't be, this, I think that probably needs to be when people are ready to really organize their life and start getting the most out of themselves. That's probably when you start seeing a coach. But when you've got things that are like a real deep emotional stuff that maybe you haven't really uncovered yet, I'd say a counselor, social
Yeah.
worker, psych, that kind of stuff, with skills in that area. But reach out to someone. And if you know who to reach out to, reach out to them. If you don't know who to reach out to, I don't know, ask a friend, ask a
Yeah.
colleague, ask someone. There's always a way, or just start following people, as I said, they probably are already, but there's always a way.
Yeah.
As in, there's always a way to become more of
Yeah.
that thing that we want to become, and be more of who we are, experience more of who we are. That's part of the human experience. It is experience more of who we are, and when we start experiencing more of who we are, well, then we can experience more of what's outside of us as well.
Yeah. Wonderful. That's a great way to put it, mate. And I always say in my stuff is just reach out to someone you trust.
Mm,
Whether or not it's your friend, it's your family, it's a GP. GPs are always a good spot as well, because
100%.
they're impartial to your friends and family and all that, particularly if it's a sensitive matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's hotlines around. There's all sorts of free stuff online. There's people like yourself on Instagram, doing great things. So just reach out to somebody, just even if it's just a signpost to try and find the right direction. So well said. Now, mate, I could talk to you all day. And we've probably already talked for half the day already. But I'll leave you with this. So, amazing. You've got an amazing story, and I always love hearing your content and seeing your content and engaging with your content as well. I'm a mad liker and commenter on your stuff. So,
yeah, thanks, man.
but this is your time to plug something. So we've talked a bit about the Mind Tradie, but is there anything else that you'd love to plug? Like, are you into anything at the moment? Music, your fitness? What would you love to plug for someone out there to get a bit more of an insight into you?
Yeah, that's another great question. So yeah, look, I think one of the things that I discovered again, particularly over the last 12, 18 months, 2 years, was eating healthier. That was definitely another thing that I proved last year. I was able to be extremely busy but still find ways to eat healthy. Like crazy. Like I can't believe how healthy I eat now. It's nuts. But I've been doing it for so long now that it's just I've become accustomed to it. So yeah, definitely eating healthier, find ways to eat healthier. But I've recently this year gone back to martial arts as well. I'm doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So it's actually the martial arts I can actually compete in with a vision impairment, which is great. I love that. But just fitness stuff in general, like go out and even as a baseline, you walk, and then if you can move into running or gym, whatever the hell it is, but just the effects, like quite literally, exercise is potentially one of the most significant and most, we know it's the most cost effective antidepressant there is out there.
Yeah.
Exercise has been scientifically proven to be an antidepressant. Like to the running and the more that push you might get that slightly more high and endorphins, which is probably going to bring on that antidepressant feeling even more so, the more harder that you're pushing. And that's why people push it to harder limits. But even just walking, getting out in nature, even if it's a rainy day or a sunny day, just get out, getting the blood pumping. That's what I'd love to probably get out there to people. Just get your heart, get the heart rate going from getting off the couch and walking, or you're feeling really shitty in the morning, throw the doona off, make a coffee, get your heart pumping. If that's the minimum that you can do each day while you're in a tough time, do that and then start building up. But yeah, activity, man, activity and action, positive action is the greatest thing people can bring into their life.
Yeah, I did see one of your Instagram posts the other day where you ran over a snake.
Oh yeah,
and it was a great. It was a great post because like 2 days later, I bumped into a snake going across our footpath on my run, and I nearly jumped 10 meters in the air, mate.
Oh, really? Yeah, because the funny thing is that I've been running that path since I've lived in the area for maybe, I don't know, since I was fighting. So about 10 years I've been running the same path. It's like 4Ks up, 4Ks back. So I just love it. It's great. Yeah. And even 10 years ago, like maybe 6 months into my vision impairment or whatever it was, I remember I was running this path and then someone ran up to me and said, "Mate, stop, there's a snake up ahead." But that was like 3 or 4 meters in front of me and they could see it. And so nearly in the exact same spot, this time I ran around this corner and I was just running with my headphones on like I do. And then I was just running, just normal strides. And then this guy jumped out in front of me and he was with his kids and they're on bikes and he's like, "Mate, you just jumped over a snake." I'm like, and he said, "How did you not see that? How did you not see the snake?" I'm like, "Man, I got a vision impairment. I can't see." He's like, "How did you miss that? You missed it by about a foot." And I'm like, he was serious. He was like having like an anxiety attack just about going, because he was actually holding his chest. So he's like, "Oh man, like I can't believe he did that." I'm like, I was probably just glad I didn't hit it. But I think I've grown so accustomed to living with that, like I guess like vision impairment, where like I can't be worried about things like that. Like if I missed it, that's fantastic. If I hit it, like that's obviously bad on the snake and bad on me because it'll probably bite me. But it's like I can't live and walk around or run around like being worried about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just it's funny. I love being able to connect with that world. So maybe I connect with the world around me like that. So maybe the universe is smiling upon me. So and it maybe not hit it somehow. There was a deliberate avoidance between. I don't know, but I can't help but think that stuff is funny, or just it's not necessarily negative. I wouldn't go, "Oh man, I nearly hit a snake the other day. I shouldn't go running."
No, but here I am, fully seeing the snake, and I'm jumping almost as tall as the trees.
Well, I think that's one of the things I've realized. It's like, just what can I do?
Yeah.
Like, if I was to be and have that kind of reaction, I wouldn't really leave the house, because I could, it's scary to be able to see a snake and be scared of it. But does that mean I should be more scared of snakes because I can't see them? Or I think it's led me to be like whatever. I probably, to be honest, if that has happened twice in 10 years, imagine the amount of snakes that I've run past or run over that I didn't know about. No one else was around to tell me. It could have happened hundreds of times. I just didn't know, because I've run this track thousands and thousands of times. So anyway, I think it's one of the things that you experience living with a vision impairment. So
yeah. Well, mate, I'm going to leave it there. On a great little story there. Thanks so much for your time this morning. I really have appreciated our chat, and I've really loved seeing your growth over the last little while, and with the Mind Tradie and what you're doing online, and following your study and your fatherhood as well. So it's great to finally catch up via Zoom.
Yeah, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor to come on. I love coming onto people like yourselves podcasts and being able to share my stuff. So yeah, I really appreciate it. And thank you so much, man.
No worries. Thank you. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure that you like it and leave a comment, and then share it with your mates. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a moment of future episodes to come.